Thank you, everyone, for joining. Good afternoon, and welcome to this briefing webcast on the world of data governance and business intelligence. Briefing is a digital publication for the work and worlds of legal business leaders like yourselves, seeking to share and pick up practical insights for smarter business management. I'm Suzanna Hayek, Deputy Editor of Briefing, also a very handy app available for both Apple and Android devices. Just a reminder that we also host the annual Briefing Live conference taking place in March this year. So if you haven't signed up, please sign up for it. And I'm delighted to be joined today by our three experts in the field of data intelligence and governance. We've got Cheryl Ashman, who is the Senior Program Manager for the Business Intelligence Group at White & Case. Gareth Powell, Group Data Officer and Partner at Irwin Mitchell. CJ Anderson, who is the founder and director of Iron Carrot, the law firm Data Governance Specialists. This webcast is in partnership with Iron Carrot. Cheryl, I'm going to start with you. Can you tell us a little bit more about your role and your team at White & Case? What is it that you do?
Sure, happy to. My name is Cheryl Ashman. I am the Senior Program Manager for our Business Intelligence Group here at White & Case. And my role is really about how the Business Intelligence Group as a program works across the firm. And I'm really involved in the operational aspects of how we work, but as well how the group and the team work together, not only within the group, but also how we as a group work with the various functions across the firm. So it's quite an encompassing role, and it's really enjoyable.
And what is kind of like the outcome of what you do?
I'm really involved in all different types of projects. I'm involved in a lot of the reporting that we do and working with the team to ensure that we are focused on the right reporting across the firm, as well as working with the strategy and the vision of the group and making sure that we're aligned with that, but then also collaborating and working with the other functions and just, in making sure that we keep that line of communication and collaboration open, and we know what they're doing and they're aware of what we're doing so that we're all able to work together.
And where does data governance fit in then into your function? Is it important at all? How do you tackle it? What do you do about it?
I think data governance is one of the foundations of our function, but mainly of the firm. So the Business Intelligence Group has three pillars to it, of which data governance is one. And it's a core piece to what we do because we, as a business intelligence group, are an enterprise group. We work cross-functionally with all the various different departments, and to enable a real seamless type of working requires solid data governance and a foundation in data governance, so that we basically become the champions of ensuring that the data that we have is governed accordingly, and we're able to produce the analytics that we can. So in order for us to be a center of excellence requires us to have a data governance framework that works for us.
So you said you work across different departments. Was that a challenge at all, when it comes to data governance for you? How did you go about it?
Yeah, it's because it was so new. And what we did was new, and the foundation of the group was really created. BI was created from different aspects of the firm brought together in one to be more focused on the enterprise data and analytics. It was a journey for us, and it still continues to be a journey, whereby we bring the different functions along with us. And so before, where it may have been siloed with people data in one camp and finance data in another camp, and data that's about our clients, marketing data in another, by having the data governance group and bringing people on the journey and them recognizing the importance of everybody although you may have your data, everybody understanding where that the journey of that data goes and the downstream implications from their own relevant sisters and why it's important to communicate becomes a real selling point to breaking down those silos and to showing the benefit of data governance. And again, because we are this, in a way, a central function that has to work with each one of those groups, we really do become those torchbearers of saying, hey, this is impacting us because of your system may impact us because we need to access your data, but it needs, and telling that story to them and helping them along that journey.
What could be some of the reasons why, people within departments may be resistant to collaborating and, sharing the data across?
Law firms are interesting places. We are keepers of secrets. And a lot of the data that we have are data about our clients, and they're very confidential sometimes and very secretive. And then data about our people, again, very confidential and regulations around that. And so it is often difficult to try and cross the streams of data to enable that sharing. However, I think it's important for people to recognize the importance of sharing that data. That's a barrier, is people don't want to share the data because they're afraid of the risk that it entails. But by showcasing the benefit of sharing that data in a safe, secure way, removes a lot of the barriers to that.
Do you use any incentives, to incentivize your teams to collaborate and come up with good or have good data governance?
It sounds like, do you use a carrot? I don't know if we really incentivize them, in more that we show them the benefit that they get. It's more of showcasing that than saying, hey, if you do this, then we'll give you this. We all benefit from sharing our data. We all benefit from good governance, from clean data. And so I don't think there's really a trade-off to be had, but it's more of showing them the utopia that it could be. And I think that's really the incentive there, is showcasing this is what the future looks like, but we have to get through this journey in order to get there, but it's going to be great.
And what could be some of the risks of potentially getting it wrong, perhaps?
Well, some of the risks are pretty severe. Obviously, as I mentioned, you're working with sometimes confidential client data, you're working with people data, and there are strict rules and regulations around the use of that data. So that's one risk. But obviously, if you have good risk management and good security measures in place, you greatly reduce that risk. We work more on an internal basis, so I think we have a little less risk of it getting out. But again, you always bear that risk. Thankfully, have not encountered any of those great risks that could come about. But I think the biggest one is just inappropriate sharing of data. But again, I think in a governance framework and in any corporation or company, that they have risk management tools or processes in place to navigate through that.
I know you're a proponent of agile methodology. Can you tell us a little bit more about that? What do you mean by that, and how do you apply it within White & Case?
Sure. So agile methodology is a program management or a management way of working, project management way of working. And its focus is really on people and collaboration and breaking things down into simplified, easy to work with pieces. It's about enabling quick movement and responding to change quite quickly. And so for the BI group, which is a new way really at the firm of working, we do work with an agile methodology in a Scrum framework, whereby we have regular meetings, a regular meeting cadence, so that we're all talking as a team together, so that we're able to talk and work together collaboratively, but also make any shifts quite quickly if there are any blocks or bugs or barriers that do come up. But it also enables us to work really closely with our users and our stakeholders and have conversations directly with them to ensure that what we are developing meets their needs as users. So they are just as much as important of the process from start to finish to ensure that we have created something that's useful, tangible, and meets their needs. So it is a different way of working than your typical project management waterfall method, where it's a full planning and then you have a big bang at the end. This is more about those iterative, small development and successes and wins and rolling out and getting feedback and then iterating on that and making those changes off of the back of feedback. So it's a real user, stakeholder, people engaged way of working, which I think has benefited us greatly here.
And if any law firms would like to apply the same methodology, what piece of advice would you give to them?
That's actually a really good question. I think the first piece of advice I would give them would be to set up that channel of communication within the team specifically that you are working with, and create that regular cadence of conversation and communication between the group, because that is the essence of agile methodology working and Scrum working, is sharing your ideas and thoughts and solutions and different issues that have come up, and helping, and the team being able to either help remove blocks or the team being able to come up with solutions. So I would say the first step is really create that collaborative, communicative group cadence of meetings.
Thank you. I'm going to move on to talk about adopting new technologies. So you previously spoke about implementing a new data management tool. How has it helped you with your data governance, and what are the benefits of using it at a large firm?
Yes, last year around this time, we actually started the journey of looking at a new data governance management tool. I'm actually really excited about it this year. It is a tool that we focused on for our data dictionary, our cataloging, and our lineage, and being able to share this out with our various, with our data stewards and our data governors, and even more broadly across the firm to those involved in our different functions and even in technology. We're still on the journey of implementing the tool. We have reached several milestones of the implementation and are now looking at adjusting the data. And just to also be clear, when I say data, I'm referring to metadata in this case, which is data about the data we have. And it has definitely been a process whereby we brought and had to bring everybody along on the journey, because the end result for us is one where we create and improve the data literacy, ideally across the firm. We are looking over the next few years at a couple of big system changes, and something like this tool will help us in making those big technology changes, because it helps those involved understand the impact that the changes will have, not only to their own system, but also on that downstream impact to the other users as well. It also is one around how we're working with some of our reference data and capturing that, and how we're able to really manage that data. So there are a lot of benefits we expect to see, and probably will start to see ideally from from the start of this journey. But it's a real exciting time for us as we look to bring this on.
And do any of these tools utilize AI, and where does AI fit in data governance?
It will use a bit of an AI component to it as you get more of an understanding, or as more metadata is ingested. The tool becomes smarter in understanding where the lineage has to go and starts mapping it out automatically. So there will be an AI component to that. When we talk about AI and data governance, I always like to kind of take it back to real basics, because I don't think you can even have or consider or start to work with AI and all the various AI tools if you don't have data governance in play, or a data governance framework in play. It doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to be completely clean, but I think there needs to be some governance around the data and an understanding of that data to enable AI to really effectively be used for any organization. And so, as you know, they say garbage in and garbage out. If you switch and your focus was once on data governance, but you just immediately go straight to AI, and you hadn't really done the data governance piece and done some of that cleanup and that data quality and the lineage and understanding the data, what you're going to be working with in AI is not going to be giving you the results you want. And so I really encourage people to, when they start looking at AI, to really, even if it's a dual track, really hone in on that data governance piece and the data that they have, because again, you're not going to be reaping the real benefits from AI without it.
So would you say AI tools could help with the data governance bit, but most importantly, enable to leverage AI effectively and to be able to analyze all this data and make use of it? You need to have clean data, but you could use AI both sides, so to clean the data, but also to extract the data.
Yeah, you definitely can. I mean, AI, I know it's the buzzword now, it's the hot new thing, but it's been around for a very long time. And it actually has always been used in various different ways. We just never really labeled it as AI. But yes, there is that component where it will be helpful in helping you clean up your data as well. But yes, you also have to be aware that if that data is not clean, then you're not going to get great AIs. But I don't think we can I think there's a human element to it that we all have to be real cognizant about. And it really does come down to the people who have the knowledge around that data, who will be really the guides to ensuring that you have properly governed data.
Hey, thank you very much. Yeah. You touched on a very important point. I mean, we keep talking about these technologies and AI, but it's really the people behind it, the people who are looking at the data and how they action it, and the decisions they make as a result is also, well, I mean, is the most important factor, I believe. Thank you, Cheryl. I'm going to move on to you, Gareth.
Afternoon. How you doing, Suzanna?
Hello, good afternoon, Gareth. I'm great, thank you. What about yourself?
Very good, thank you. Very good.
Thank you for joining us. Gareth, if you could tell us a little bit more about your role and what you currently do at Irwin Mitchell.
Yeah, of course, Suzanna. Delighted to be here. So I'm the Group Data Officer at Irwin Mitchell. I've been with the business for 20 months now. So we've really been on a journey with data, which stems many years. It goes back many, many years. You know, since coming in, I've built out a 3-year vision, which we set in 2023. So that sets us going forward over the next 3 years.
So would you say how has the data strategy since you took on this role evolved within your firm?
Yeah, of course. So I think first of all, having a bit of a strap line and tag for where we're trying to go is important. So what we're striving to deliver over the next few years is good quality, easy to access information that makes it easy for people to do a great job and to provide a great service. That's the banner, and that's what we're here to do. So there's probably a number of deliverables over the last 12 months, which, when you sort of take stock of what we've enabled, it's pretty different to probably where it was 12, 18 months ago. So the very first thing that I looked at and we delivered in February last year was a new target operating model. So a brand new structure that we started to bed in from February. We launched that in February last year. Like many law firms, we're going through major transformation, major technology transformation, and a lot of that is underpinned by significant amounts of data migration, whether that's rationalization of case management systems or implementation of new CRM systems. The data migration aspect of that sits with me. And in parallel with that, what I wanted to enable was a partnership. So we appointed a boutique consultancy, which augments our data enablement team to enact those migrations. I think we've been very hot on decommission as well. So we've got a lot of legacy to contend with, and we've reduced a significant number of databases that we have. We're also looking at sort of reducing the footprint of reporting that we have both in Tableau and Crystal. So part of this is about almost articulating what is the risk around data. We did that earlier in the year last year and flagged it as red. We've put a lot of mitigation in place, which has probably moved us to an amber now. Part of that is then thinking about the future, and to future-proof us, we will be now focused on the build of a new data platform using new technologies like Azure and Databricks. I think the business transformation piece is quite a critical one for me. So there's a data transformation we need to enact, but we can't forget there's some significant benefit for the business by moving to a more seamless case management system with more integration and more of our capabilities all in one place, which makes it easier for our fee earners to deliver the work that they need to. The other kind of aspect that we've delivered, another key milestone, has been rolling out Power BI. We're just in the middle of that now. And as a business, we haven't really capitalized on Power Apps historically. So from where I was sat, there was an awful lot of processes, manual processes that could be better placed in a Power App rather than necessarily in an Excel document, which obviously carries quite a lot of risk. So we've been busy building out products using both of those tools, which help our business to drive efficiency, drive growth, and improve our clients' experience. And the final piece for me, which is really important, is the measurability of it all. So, we've built out a data maturity assessment, we've put in place SLAs around data, and we're tracking things like internal net promoter score. So getting that feedback from our internal clients helps us to sort of shape, understand challenges, but also what we're doing well. So, really kind of coming into this year, the focus is much more on value creation and embedding that ethic into, what we do as a department.
What piece of advice would you give to a law firm that's trying to build a data governance and business intelligence team?
Yeah, I mean, I think it depends. There's no one size that fits all. The reality is, I think you've got to take stock of, what does your portfolio look like? So is it greenfield? Is it brownfield? Are you walking into a business that has never really gleaned any insight analytics capabilities of core technologies that create data, or are you walking into an environment where you might have a lot of legacy tools to contend with? There's a lot of rationalization that needs to happen over that period. So dependent on the answer to that sort of varies in terms of the strategy that you would take. But I think for me, the people is the most important thing. First of all, you need a vision, and you need people to be brought into that vision. What's going to be the difference that you will make over the period of time, which might be a 3 to 4 year window, and articulating what the investment might be around that is equally very helpful in those early days. But really diagnosing, where is the business at quite quickly in those first 3 months. starts to build you the kudos to enact that change that is going to be required. But as I say, it might be very different if it's a greenfield scenario where you've never actually had a means of capturing that data and capitalizing on insight. There's some basic stuff that you can produce that will will improve how a business drives efficiency. Versus maybe an organization like the one that I'm in, where actually we've got some level of maturity around reporting and analytics. We just want to be doing that in a very different way going forward.
It's interesting that you mentioned Power Apps, and perhaps a lot of firms aren't fully utilizing them. Can you give us a specific example or use case that you've recently used it for?
Yeah, sure. So in the very early days, with the first sort of use case that we leveraged it for was our people platform is coming to end of life. So we used it as a bit of a stopgap to effectively capture objectives information on our partner audience. So that was a pretty quick win, actually. And I think just by enacting that, what it enabled the business to understand was the art of the possible. So very quickly, following on from that, we looked at an area that obviously most law firms will be wrestling with, and that's anti-money laundering. And when I joined the business, there was a project that was looking into what we would need to enact from a compliance angle, and the solution that was being crafted was one that was in Excel. So looking at that process, it would have been pretty horrendous for our fee earners. It would have taken an awful lot of time. The data capture would not have been brilliant, and there would have been no real visibility of where people were at in terms of progress, in terms of the funnel. So what we effectively built was the Power App for anti-money laundering. So that enables us to manage the clients and our matter risk assessment process for new clients and matters. And essentially, it's a workflow. Enables us to sort of capture those risk assessments between our onboarding teams, our fee earners, and our general counsel team, and therefore means that we can make sure that all the relevant checks have been completed in that process. So what was really beneficial about Power Apps was the ability for data collection in a really robust way. And that means that, one, we can satisfy the internal process and SRA requirements, but also means that we can look at how are people actually performing against that process? Are there training requirements that we need in certain areas? Do we need to give people a nudge? But the whole premise of it is one that's totally automated. So yes, it will evolve, but it's a really good example of a solution that we probably wouldn't have been able to build 18 months ago.
Thank you. And I just wanted to ask you this question before I move on to CJ. You spoke a lot about innovations in business intelligence. We were just discussing that. Do you see any new waves or any future directions that you're particularly excited about?
I think probably Cheryl captured this earlier. We're in a world where the business, every organization is looking at artificial intelligence. It is nothing new. There is an impact that we've got to think about from an AI and machine learning perspective. And I think some verticals are adopting this rapidly already. Some even have customer-facing products, that are generative AI based. So, for me, that's going to be hugely disruptive for the professional services sector, particularly legal. Any organization that carries an awful lot of documents, is going to look different in future. That's an opportunity to be disruptive. But I'm sort of expecting probably the major change will happen in the next 5 to 10 years. So we're personally working quite closely with Microsoft. We've established an innovation strand within the business, and we've engaged with the business to think about what are the types of use cases that we can envisage where this capability might help. But that's not exclusively generative AI. It might be more traditional machine learning, a standard sort of data science project. I think, Cheryl covered it neatly before, but governance is absolutely key with this. So, I'd go back to the principles of GDPR and ask the question, what are you comfortable with in terms of how your data is being used? That's the acid test. But ultimately, underpinning all of ML and much of generative AI will be the firm's proprietary data. which needs to be expertly curated. It's got to be robust in terms of quality, and it's got to be governed in an appropriate cloud platform to really enable that scalable machine learning and generative AI use cases. And I think, probably another key consideration is, what are those walls that we need to put up around data, permissions, particularly around clients, are going to be absolutely critical. So making sure your permissioning from a marketing perspective is in place is going to be absolutely paramount, dependent on what the use cases are that you're wanting to drive.
Thank you very much, Gareth. I'm going to bring CJ into the conversation now. Hello, CJ.
Hi, Susanna.
CJ, can you briefly tell us a little bit more about you, and then we can, any comments about the conversation?
Sure. So I'm part of Iron Carrot. We look at data governance, but only for law firms. My background as a librarian and then working in law and with data for my entire career has given me quite an interesting perspective on how much of data is actually a people problem and not a system problem. And I think some of the points that Cheryl and Gareth raised around looking at processes and looking at how you put the rules around things is actually the root of what data governance actually is. It's about what do you have, who looks after it, who's allowed to share it, and what are they allowed to do with it when they do get it, and making sure everybody knows that, with a wrapper of, and how do we take decisions about that wrapped around it. So I think there's a kind of feeling that data governance is really complicated, and we try and make it simple by saying it's just a set of conversations around the very topics that Cheryl and Gareth have been chatting about.
Thank you, CJ. I'm going to ask you some more questions, and Gareth and Cheryl, but my first question here, we've got a Q&A. Cheryl, I'm going to ask you this question. So, and sorry, just a reminder, if you've got any more questions, please pop them in the Q&A section. So Cheryl, this question says, when setting up data governance, what emphasis did you place on principles and policies, and how did these land with the business?
So when we were setting up our framework, there was a focus on the policy, but mainly on the people. So one, it's identifying the right people and what role they will play, whether it's a steward or a governor or a steering committee member. And then understanding the various processes that we have and what were the real pain points. So I think the policies that we have come together with a lot of that procedural review and aspects, and being able to uphold those policies, because we obviously, as a firm, like many firms, have standard policies across, but we really were honed in on the people and the processes that we have to set up our framework before we even considered looking at anything that was even close to being tech related. And I think that has been really helpful, because that one creates that that trust in the group, because the people come together and have to work together in that committee. But then also when we start to evaluate the various processes that we have, creates an understanding in the group of what people's roles are and the impact that each other has on one another.
Thank you, Cheryl. CJ, I'm going to ask you this next question. So, you work with law firms and you advise them on their data governance. What are the main challenges that you see, and what do they tend to get wrong?
I think there's a lot of things that the people are on, a lot of challenges. I think a lot of it is around trying to do things in silos. There's a lot of firms that don't have a holistic picture of their data. IT have a good idea because they kind of see the systems end of it, but there's not really someone that understands the business rationale behind capturing the data in each of those systems and how it all joins together. So I think that's kind of one of the first things that we look at, and a lot of people go, we know what data we have because we've got a finance system, a CRM system, an HR system and whatever else, but when you get into the detail, they're not quite sure. I think there's also that piece around who are the people, and then this is where you start to look non-hierarchical, because there are directors of every function who take the decisions and sit in the big seat. They get paid the big money to take those big decisions, but actually down on the ground, there's a lot of people who are subject matter experts who know where the bodies are buried, who know where they've had to do something fudgy in the back end of a system or a process to make the data do what everyone thinks it should be doing. And it's actually in those fudgy areas and talking to those experts that you can make quite a lot of progress and get quite a lot of understanding. So I think there's a kind of propensity to maybe go in at too senior a level when you start to look at data governance initiatives and not involve enough people on the ground. And the third one, again, is to focus on that policy piece, because as Cheryl said, there's a lot of policies in firms. They're usually quite good, robust policies. It's what are people doing with them? That's the challenge. Are they actually implementing them, or are they just kind of shelfware? Somebody wrote them and they sit up there.
Okay, thank you. Gareth, we've got another question here in the Q&A that I'm going to ask you. Right. So, Gareth, can you tell us any really good examples of how you've used data, business intelligence, to tell a story, for example, to change behaviors to achieve big goals? Do you have any specific stories to tell us?
Well, I think we're probably on a bit of a journey, it's fair to say, on that point. For me, analytics is threefold. There's one, obviously, kind of your backwards looking reporting, getting in the basic reporting that a business can measure core performance against. You then kind of enter the more sort of deeper dive and analytical domains, and then getting more into the kind of predictive analytics space, data science and machine learning. For me, we're probably very focused on that first area at the minute. So, as I said before, big legacy reporting estate that we're trying to pare back. What we are trying to sort of build out there is a new core dashboard that is going to give our fee earners a lot of their financial information in one place. So the minute they have to sort of navigate multiple different reports, it's quite slow, the Tableau capability that we have today. So it feels like quite a small step, but actually that's quite impactful. And, we're going to have to think quite carefully about the change management of rolling that solution out. But once you've got the basics in place like that, you can then start to build much more complex data sets that maybe challenge some of the areas that we do business in. And, that might be anything. We've got some interesting capabilities around dashboarding for discounts and incentives, and utilizing that, we can get smarter at how we drive our margin, as an example. Other examples might be segmentation that we've built as a business, which gives us a bit more of an audience lens. So we can take a data-driven approach combined with proprietary research that we undertake to build a segmentation system to better define our client base.
Is it possible to use some of this analysis to perhaps target new clients, or reach out to new clients or retain existing ones?
Absolutely. So I think trying to understand where we drive more palatable downstream client lifetime value, if we can understand the mechanisms in terms of how we've attracted those clients in the first instance, we can start to look at things like upweighting paid search spend, and we do those sorts of things today. So there are tangible examples like that where you're utilizing the data in a really proactive way to build a better business.
Thank you. And Cheryl, I'd like to ask you the same question. At White & Case, do you have any really good examples, a story in which you've used your data analytics for a particular?
Absolutely. So I think, Gareth, you're a bit on the beginning of your journey. We're into year 4 of ours, and we've created quite a few dashboards now, particularly one, as you were actually just discussing, a timekeeper snapshot, where we have provided any timekeeper across the firm an understanding of their time, their matters that they are working on, who they are working with. And that has really upskilled or increased the data literacy for our timekeepers to really take a hold of their careers and really have ownership of their careers. And so that's been really great to see. We also have created some matter management type of tools and profitability where, we're able to help people better manage their matters on that financial basis. So definitely have made some great progress in the firm. But again, there's still a ways to go and a lot more that we can do. So it's a real exciting time right now.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to ask you one more thing about that. I'm just going to remind the audience to type in a few more Q&As. If you've got any questions, please type them in the Q&A. So Cheryl, you said you've already seen, how the data and the analytics can help you in different areas.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think it can be utilized in other areas that you still haven't used it for? And which particular areas are you most excited about?
Well, I think there's a lot of change coming about. I think a lot of the excitement for us in terms of data and analytics will be a lot around our clients at the moment. I think we'll have a good focus around the client data and what we can really bring to that space and how we can leverage that data for a better understanding of our clients, but also helping our clients better understand themselves, even in a way. There's a piece there where we can start to look at with tools like Power BI and the various platforms, how are we also sharing data with the clients to get an understanding of their relationship with us? Law firms are really around people and client data, if you think about it in that way. So the analytics will be focused either around clients and what we're bringing to the clients or people, whether it be our own people internally or, the people we work, the people data itself. So I think that's where our focus will really lie in that data and analytics space and how we can give people the understanding, whether it be about their clients or whether it be about themselves or the people at the firm. Things like work allocation is another area that comes to mind for data and analytics, making sure that people are on the right deals and they are having the right experiences. You're able to get into L&D aspects too. So there's so much areas that you can start to dive into that it is. You really do have to be a bit selective because you can't do it all at one time unless you're a team of thousands. But I think, it'll be really interesting to see where we go next.
Thank you. Just another reminder, if anyone's got any questions, please pop them in the Q&A section. Gareth, I've got a question for you. So you briefly mentioned something about, discounts. And I want to talk about pricing because it comes up a lot. And, let's say the travel industry, they do a lot of dynamic pricing and they use a lot of analytics for that. Do you think law firms are doing that already? Do you think that's an area where business intelligence can play a role in the future? Can you tell me more, please?
Yeah, absolutely. So, my sort of experience prior to coming into Irwin Mitchell was in retail and telco, financial services, and those sectors are very, very heavily focused on what are you effectively investing in the customer or the client to, what are you giving away effectively? So, from my perspective, that can be getting your basic reporting in place to track, what your level of discounting is, through to, as you say, dynamic pricing to individual cohorts of customers. Now, I don't think we're anywhere near that at the minute, but I think it's baby steps. So starting to track, actually, these are your headline rates, and this is what you're effectively discounting. These are where you're giving them away. That's a really good starting point so that we can set better margin targets and we can look at where there are exceptions, better manage those exceptions, and look at things like rate cards, rationalize those to make it as simplistic as possible to run. The more complexity you have there, the more out of control your level of discounting is going to be. But I've certainly spoken to other organizations, other law firms that are starting to use price elasticity to dictate what level of pricing they might set.
And Cheryl, do you have any comments or anything that you're doing at White and Case regarding pricing, using data to set the right prices?
Yeah, I think that's where the tool I mentioned, our matter management tool, really does come into play in terms of how we're pricing deals and giving people the understanding of how their matters are being priced. It's definitely an area of interest and one that I think data and analytics plays a really core role in helping people understand that pricing so that we're able to ensure a good leverage on every matter.
Okay, thank you. And CJ, I just wanted to bring you back into the conversation. What piece of advice could you perhaps, lots of law firms, they don't know a lot what's happening in other law firms. I mean, they do read briefing, hopefully, and so they find out about what other law firms are doing, but you work with lots of different law firms. What piece of advice would you give them when it comes to data governance? I know you gave a few tips earlier, but what else do you notice, perhaps more recently even?
So I think that there's a lot more focus and attention on data governance now that people are starting to get excited by AI. So people who were never supporters or sponsors of data governance and felt it was an admin task are a bit more on board with it being a bit of a priority and part of data programs as a result. I think there's a lot of firms at very different stages on their data journeys. Some of them are using business intelligence as a driver for data governance. Some are just using system upgrades or organizational changes as that driver. But I think ultimately everyone's having to look at it, whether they're calling it data governance or calling it something else. There's a lot of it going on. And I think everyone is trying to get their arms around what have you got, who looks after it. And I think if at a basic recommendation is if you can at least get that, then whatever else comes, you'll be able to handle.
And I think one of the challenges, and I will bring in Cheryl and Gareth to comment on this question as well. One of the challenges is getting busy lawyers to be responsible and accountable for showing good data behavior and contributing to a data-focused culture. It's a question that just came in the Q&A. Any comments about that, CJ?
So I think that's always the challenge. About lawyers are very focused on the piece of work in front of them. They just want to get it done and on to the next one, and everything else is admin or a barrier to billing, as someone once called it. They just want to get going with it. And I think it's about, this is where the data literacy and the education programs come in, about one, helping them help their future selves, explaining to them why it's of a benefit to the firm to do the things with data that we're asking them to do. But also it's also on us to look at, are we asking them the right things at the right time? And are there things that the technologies could be doing for us? Do we need to ask them the matter type in 3 different forms, for example, or could the technology help do that for us? So there's a little bit of teaching the people, there's a little bit of technology and being mindful of process. And there's also a little bit of consequences, because for a lot of lawyers, all they want to do is get the work done and get the bill out. And if there's a barrier, like I can't get my bill out or I can't unlock my bonus because I haven't input into my forms, that helps go quite a long way. And there are a few firms who have started to look at the stick rather than the carrot to help with that behavior. But that's always alongside that education program of why it's an important thing to do. And usually the stick is a last resort.
Okay, and Gareth.
Yeah, it's I mean, I guess professional services, legal in particular, it's slightly more nuanced in the sense that, in a lot of verticals, you may just have sort of data quality to contend with, but it's the step before that's key, which is data capture. So I think, as CJ says, trying to keep it as simplistic as possible in terms of what people are needed to complete to give you the kind of essential data points to then go away and analyze whatever it is that you need to is key. But I think it's back to that question of why should I care? How do you create that curiosity in the business about, well, actually, I don't really know why I'm capturing that data point. And I think the minute that you can sort of highlight to someone, right, this is where we're utilizing that data, it might be for something downstream, it might have nothing to do with that individual matter, where you're utilizing that data point downstream, then sort of playing back to individuals what, you know, where the value's coming from and why that data point's important is where we've got to get to. But that's that is not an overnight thing. I think, you know, creating that kind of culture of curiosity of data is going to take some time, but the more you can kind of showcase the benefits of good data capture, of having good data quality, it just creates the cadence more.
Okay, so you always incentivize them through education and having them see the outcome of having good data culture behavior. Do you ever use a stick methodology, just like CJ mentioned?
No, I mean, one of the things that we were proposing potentially as part of the 3-year strategy is almost actually we will start to sort of get data quality measures on our balanced scorecard, so it's visible right to the top of the business. You know, if it's a bonusable KPI, people all of a sudden they're going to care, aren't they? So I think where we're at from a maturity around data governance, we've got a long way to go. We're dealing with probably sort of some good legacy principles that were put in place, but actually bringing that to the fore, having kind of real clarity over business owners of data. We've still got to go through that journey. So yeah, it's going to be an exciting one.
Thank you. And Cheryl, I know you spoke a lot about education and communication, but are there any other ways that, you know, you encourage your lawyers to have good data behavior?
Yeah, so it's funny you asked that question. It makes me think back to my past. So just to let everyone know, in my past, I was a lawyer. I was a lawyer for about 10 years at another law firm. And what it does make me think of is that what's in it for me, and communicating and really tapping into that, what a lawyer, like what's in it for them. And I think for those, it's about pulling back the curtain, because they really need to and want to understand why is it important. And that's why something for us, like the Timekeeper Snapshot, is showcasing to them, like, these are your hours, these are the matters you were working on, this is how long it takes for you to release your time. And being able to showcase to them makes them see and engage with the data, because if they see that something is wrong or incorrect, let me tell you, our phone is ringing. People are quick to come and say, why is this number? You go, well, that's what you entered. And so you're appealing to one, their need for that information to enable them to do the work, but also you're giving them information. It's that what's in it for me. It's giving them the tools they need to do that understanding. And I think that's been a really great benefit for us to incentivize people to start really engaging with data.
Thank you. Well, thanks everyone for joining me today. Thank you. Thank you, Cheryl. Thank you, Gareth and CJ. And thanks to our partners, Irwin Carrot, for sponsoring this webcast. And we've got the upcoming briefing live in March. If you haven't signed up, please sign up for it, and keep an eye out for our future webcasts, magazines, and make sure you download the briefing app. Thank you everyone for joining.